I'm Rhianna Patrick. Normally when I'm not at the State Library of Queensland hanging around at Dargan, I do present a program on ABC Local Radio nationally, which is actually called After Beat. It's called ABC Read on Sunday nights. But this is kind of the final of a series of talks that have been held here at the State Library of Queensland regarding sustainability and looking at Indigenous ways of sustainability, caring for country, and also a look at where those contemporary ideas of caring for country and looking after our environment also intersect with that First Nations knowledge and experience of what that means today in a modern context in the 20th century. But before we do get started, I want to ask Danny Doyle, who's also one of our panellists, to come and give the traditional welcome before we start. So, Danny.
Very impressive. Okay. Let's go to let her lead you. Alright, so everybody got some leaves, hey? Yeah? Yeah? Mm-hmm. So what we'll do is we'll give them a little rub and hold them in our hands, hey? Just feel into those leaves. Give them a little rub there. And then we'll take a nice deep breath of these leaves. And we'll take another one and we'll allow ourselves to be present and centered. And just to be here with that next breath. And then we'll take one more breath and we're going to lean backwards just slightly in our chairs. Nobody's standing up, so that's good. And we're going to lean back into the teachings and the learnings of the past. And then another breath. We're going to take those teachings and learnings that we can use and we're going to bring them through the present and into the future as we lean forward. And then, of course, we come back to centre in the last breath. Letting go of everything that we need to let go of so we can begin our night and our journey together right here, right now. And you can keep these leaves, they're yours. So I'll speak in an Aboriginal language, which is one of my grandmothers. And I'll tell you what I said in English. And I'll play my Beyond 2000 model didgeridoo here and across the top. Yeah. And if you like, you can even just listen, close your eyes, and just imagine, if you like, what it was like where we're standing out here along the river. We had people swimming across the river, back and forth, canoes. Going down the west end to the thick scrub, the jungle. It's all about food, gathering, meeting. It still has the same energy today. If you look at all the coffee shops and the markets and stuff like that. And how Monarchy Road was a little creek. Separated that part of the mainland. So it made it like a little island there. Working its way down towards Musgrave Park and everything where the water holes were. And even the settlers used to use that water hole a lot. And then the hills took over most of this area as Hillland, it's now known as. It's a hill family. And we would gather and would walk from across the river, come across the river, go to do our shopping if you like, gathering food and everything around West End here. Come across the river if we wanted to go to Mount Cootha and St Lucia area and out that way. Otherwise we'd walk out down towards Wollongabba to the waterholes down that way. There were 3 waterholes, and if you come down from Dutton Park and Kangaroo Point, those areas, it caused the waterholes to swell as the rain and the water cover that place. And then out to Norman Park and those places. Just gathering around and walking back and forth, meeting the local people there. There's a lot of activity around. So just imagine all of that, and we'll get started. Iguana dangun, nalau, nalingo bay, na wagalana indi, munda, nugalambula, mari, arawa, mogani, muguru dulu, nananus, muguru, nalingo bay, yagarbu. And yes, I acknowledge also you and your ancestors from whatever country you come from, whether they be here, in their bodies or not. So, what did I say? I said, the moon is still up, so it's a good night. I said, come, sit with me. Let's join me, as you're welcome. As we hear and see, back to front, as we see and hear our old men and our old women, well, that's their voices, of yesterday and today, and our children of tomorrow. I mentioned the Yagarbo language speaking people, and that covers from south of the Caboolture River all the way down to north of the Logan River, and then out to Toowoomba Range way. And within that area are all these other groups, many groups that walk these lands with their families, going to each other's places, learning stories and sharing what they could. And of course we had a few little disputes here and there we needed to sort out, and that happens as well. And that's still around today. So I find that a very effective way of doing an acknowledgement or a welcome, to just look at the language group. And sometimes the language group is also a tribe, if you like, or a clan group as well. But if you can get the language that most of them derive from, then you include everybody and no one misses out. That way you don't have anybody climbing up and being the tall poppy, if you like. And everyone gets acknowledged, so nobody can really kick up a stink about where they're from and whose land you're on. Now the power of acknowledgement in itself can be likened to somebody who is acknowledged that they've been told from a doctor that they're sick, and once they accept that, then it will have an effect. Same thing if you accept that you are a good person and that you deserve all the good things that are coming in your life. And once you accept that and acknowledge it, then that will have an effect on your life as well. Similar to that of intention. So these leaves, one is the aniseed myrtle leaves, yeah? Good in your cooking and everything, these things. And lemon myrtle leaves is the other one. Both of those leaves have a nice and different smell to them. And sometimes when you smell them, you can taste them as well. Just the smell of these leaves is an antidepressant in itself. Yes. And we find much food that are gathered as well is good for the body and the soul as well. Did I miss out on anything? No? Yes, you're welcome. Did I play the didgeridoo?
Yeah.
Did I play it?
No, you didn't.
I haven't played it.
No.
All right, I've got to play the didgeridoo.
Thanks, Danny. I'll introduce our panel now. Sonja Carmichael is just to my left here, and Sonja is a Quandamooka woman and a descendant of the Noongi people, one of the 3 clans of the traditional custodians of Quandamooka. Sonja mainly works with fibre, as you can see in front of us here. She's brought some of her wares along, exploring traditional and contemporary techniques of weaving, reflecting her family cultural connections and the land and seas of Minjerribah. Her hand-woven baskets are made using a diverse range of weaving fibres and materials gathered on traditional lands. Sonja gathers which is swamp reeds and grass fibres, as well as the nets, which you can see here, ropes, plastics and other materials such as marine debris that have been discarded into the ocean and that she's found washed up on the beautiful shores of Minjerribah. Her works respond directly to current environmental concerns regarding the preservation of the natural environment by transforming the discarded materials into functional and contemporary artworks. In the middle, we have Doyle Chapman, who was born in Dirrabandi in southwest Queensland, the Cooma tribal lands, and is a fully qualified chef residing on the Sunshine Coast since about 1976, so you're only really 21. Doyle has been working in the food industry for over 30 years, exploring everything from fine French cuisine to contemporary Australian dishes. With some vastly varied experiences, which we will hear about tonight, Doyle finds her passion in the Australian bush tucker industry and widely promotes it through not only her use, she does a catering business, but also workshops and bush tucker seminars that she does offer to everyone. And she considers traditional food to be an effective weapon in the fight against heart disease and diabetes as she continues to raise the profile of traditional foods, evoking connection to country and customary methods. And of course, you have just seen Danny Doyle, and Danny lives here in Brisbane, and his traditional affiliation though lies with the Yuggapul, Yuggera, Yarrawa and Iman people through his paternal lineage, and the Waka Waka and Woolly Woolly peoples through his maternal lineage. Danny is a cultural facilitator and educator, and he specialises in reconnecting through spiritual healing, which I guess you've gathered from all the breathing of aniseed and lemon myrtle as well. And is also done a lot of work in bush tucker, as well as creative expression, has worked with schools, community groups, organisations across Queensland since about 2003 in promoting and educating communities in Aboriginal culture. We'll be expecting a lot now, Danny. But I'm going to start, Sonja, with you and ask you about the creations that we see here in front of you. What got you started in creating your work in this particular way?
I guess it's a long, rich cultural connection and spiritual connection to country, that feeling of the bag someplace of belonging and connection to culture and our family and our old bags that are in the museum collections, which are probably the main surviving memories of our old traditional weaving is in the old loot bags in the Anthropology Museum at UQ, and I had the honour of going there with a group of our elders last year to view the bags, and that was an incredible feeling, having gloves on and seeing and I guess seeing that those bags were full of accessible knowledge and I guess stories from our ancestors who are the master weavers and who are no longer with us, so we really don't know those techniques anymore. And I decided to explore why we've struggled to continue, and putting it in the context of taking on my master's, looking at the pre-contact era, and the social life of our beautiful old loot bags, and then colonisation, and then today, so looking at before the burn, and then after the burn, and in the spirit of regenerating and rediscovering our old techniques. And during that process, I guess I went to the supermarket too, and that's the sea where I discovered, as well as our beautiful rich reeds, the ungair that is still embedded in the land, growing in the freshwater swamps today. It's a beautiful reed that just glides out like grass. So I guess for me it was looking at the materials as well as the socio-cultural aspects. So that's what drew me into finding my beautiful project to work on regenerating and reviving and protecting and preserving and continuing our cultural retrieval of our old ways.
Sonja, you mentioned being able to see those original old bags in the Anthropological Museum at UQ, which I think are from the 1890s. By being able to view those kind of bags, what did you discover about the weaving techniques from back then, but has there been something from that you've been able to gather to put into the work that you create as well?
Sure, I think that feeling of healing as well that goes with weaving and connection to country, walking on country, picking those beautiful, going gathering for unge and taking the things that are impacting on our marine life. But in terms of, so it's not just about the technique, it's also about, that whole connection. And from learning, I guess, the old bags were a distinct style and a unique, pattern. All our country has different, badges of identity, I guess, in terms of bags and knowledge and experiences. And for me, those old are unique to country, the bags that are in the collections, the existing collections. There's one in Pitt Rivers and one in the British Museum, and also the Anthropology. But it's quite confronting too, because the ones in the Pitt Rivers Museum, one of them got labelled on it that it's from the scene of a massacre in Moreton Bay, and that is something, as part of my study, I'd like to explore the cultural biography of one of our beautiful bags, but also, interestingly, another of the bags there, which is the distinct, beautiful looped technique, of our bags from Quandamuka country, has a nice little label on it, which happens to say, made by, I've made a database of all of the, bags that are in collections, and it says, made by King Sandy's Gin, who is called Junos because she is so very ugly. This is the wording, the exact wording on the, quite confronting, and that is not her native name. I thought, great, that's how we're referred to it. That was the thinking and the mentality, and I guess there's a whole new part. I want to be part of re-inheriting, I guess, our old ways and into the future, past, present, and future.
And I suppose understanding that there's that historical context attached
Absolutely.
to that object now, which not only gives you that information, but that painful side of what's come before.
Yeah. And to me, this beautiful stuff that washes up as it is in its raw state has deep roots of resilience too, and survived huge injustices being dumped at sea, and is a metaphor, I guess, for coming full circle. Our old ways were weaving, which was central to every aspect of living with the land, and fishing and hunting and gathering and killing and nurturing and ritual, and I guess, the nets were made, and then they became, then this stuff became, less use of the old beautiful ways, traditional ways, and then the stuff that washes up on country. So I guess I use a technique that was post-contact, that was brought to the missions from in Galba, where once practices ceased, and the introduction of coiling techniques. So that's mainly what I've been working with, but I really would love to rediscover our old looping technique, which we don't know. It's just sleeping. It's not lost. We'll reconnect and rediscover, hopefully.
Is that part of it also? I mean, you talk there about the technique, but also the materials that you have to use, and each material is different, and each material weaves in a completely different way.
Yeah.
But when it comes to that eco-basketry that you do, have you had to incorporate that traditional element into working with these really strange, non-natural fibres?
Yeah, I guess the incorporating is still the social and the cultural and the environmental, but in a completely different, way and world. Yeah. So, but in terms of, sorry, what was your question? Yeah.
Just in terms of bringing that traditional knowledge into that modern context of how you come up with that particular look for your baskets, and whether the traditional allows you know, the difference in materials as well.
Yeah, I guess the different purposes, different roles, different values today, but certainly at the time when traditionally, there was no such thing as a cupboard or a storage or a car. The dilly bag was central to every aspect of life. So there's my modern day dilly bag over there that happens to already be netted up. Our beautiful ones in the collection are hand woven looped bags. It'd be lovely to rediscover, but I guess what I've taken from that is that ongoing practice of sitting and walking on country more, working with the environment. This stuff especially impacts on our marine life as well as the food chain and has that ongoing effect. So for but also, as I mentioned, it's bringing. We've had some beautiful experiences in community workshops throughout the Quantamuka Festival over a 3-month period, and bringing everyone together and and having that pride as well, that cultural pride, as well as impacting on taking that stuff that's damaging our marine life. So having that focus as well. Whereas I guess traditionally, food was kept and middens were created. Now these mounds of stuff just swishing around and taking out our food. So it's that big message about waste management too, I guess, and but still using and allowing time to regenerate the old freshwater reeds, the ungair that is still growing on country, which is embedded in country, and we've been got a rich source of fibre to work with that our ancestral hands did, and can still, I guess, feel that that sense of connection to the old ways, even though we don't really know them anymore. We're working on it.
I was going to ask you about sustainability and the way that you see not only your relationship to country as an Aboriginal woman, but also how that has crossed over into the context of now you're essentially cleaning beaches, but reusing that material as well and finding a purpose.
Yeah, repurposing stuff that's discarded at sea or lost at sea. And in terms of sustainability and acknowledging, the importance of caring for country, and also continuing our cultural practice, our traditional weaving practice as well in contemporary forms, in new forms, as we can still have beautiful connections. And I guess see how, at Amity, at Pulaan, we see sick turtles washing up, or dead turtles, or marine life that's impacted. So it's important, in so many ways, to work on a simple thing of picking up rubbish and recycling it, repurposing it, and enjoying doing it, and feeling that compulsion to do it, I guess.
I suppose the sad part about that is that you could term it a renewable, in that you're constantly going to keep finding this kind of thing.
I never go to the beach without a bag, because there's always anything from cigarette lighters to there's cruise ships that cruise through the ocean, where our beautiful Yarlingbilly dog, whales, the stuff that washes in, combs, toothbrushes, thongs, en masse, but then all broken up plastic and stuff. And you can see how resilient some of this stuff is. It's melted in the sun. So it's important to see what that's just the tip of the iceberg, I guess. And there's lots and lots of balloons, that's another story. That's helium balloons that get let off at funerals or celebrations or whatever, end up in
in the atmosphere, then come back down.
Throwing out rubbish up into the air that's going to come back down, and it's kind of like the balloon skin and then the twine, as well as the disc that causes so much. So there's lots and lots of.
So you're working on a use for those balloons?
We are with the Washed Up project. So while they're beautiful colours and creations, it's that damage that it does. And working with us, we've been working with Tangaluma and State Library and Quantamuka Festival during the festival with a number of schools. I think we had 20 schools come on board. So it was a great project over the 3-month period, and looking at public installations, one on Wynnum and one at Gulpi on Quantamuka Country. So they were beautiful, working with the kids and all the children that were involved in the project. And they went away happy with a new skill, but also created a beautiful canvas with their own little turtle, Bubiya, Yeah.
And what's the reaction from children working with this type of material when you show them the proper reads and what you should be working with, but the stuff that
They're just so switched on, you know. They say, why would people, you know, they don't get why people disrespect that Mother Earth.
Dale, I might bring you in here as one of those working a lot with bush tucker, and I suppose the question that I did really want to ask you is around the biggest challenge for you in your industry when it comes to working with bush tucker at the moment, and what is that?
It's sourcing it. It's being able to source it for demand. Because if I can't have bush tomatoes, half a tonne or whatever, I can't keep producing my bush tomato relish, which you all enjoyed up there. So it is that, it's sourcing it, and we've got lots of homelands, we've got lots of remote area communities that grow all our bush foods, and it's there for the taking. It's just that we've always been pushed into cattle raising or goat or something like that, so we're not taking advantage of what's actually in our own communities. So that's why I work with several other women and men to gather those resources across the nation, and hopefully we're looking at by 6 months' time there will be a new outlook there for Aboriginal people to build capacity within community to actually be able to grow and harvest, wild harvest, as well as start to look at generating new crops and that sort of thing, because we're only getting the tip of the iceberg. Lemon myrtle and aniseed myrtle and bush tomatoes and wattle seed, that's nothing to what actually really covers our great country. And if we can empower our Aboriginal people to be able to do that, then we're going to have a better resource and a stronger community all around.
And how do you go about managing particularly the wild harvesting of bush tucker? Are there new technological ways that you can bring in of just being able to monitor sort of the times that you pick, what you pick, where you pick, and just sort of spreading out that collection?
Yeah, the elders have all told us that they only want us to pick for 3 years on country, and then allow to gather seed stock and stuff as well, so that we've got future generations as well. So you don't just go on to a space and then wipe it out. You actually leave a lot of produce behind so that we can then have it for future years and generations to come. So that's been the main thing, and there's new technologies out there now that are helping us to harvest. Like once upon a time we used to go and shake the tree and get the seeds off the wattle tree. Now we've got a vacuum pack that sucks it off, and all the seeds come in, and you can get half a tonne much faster than 2 or 3 days. So for our people, for Aboriginal people in remote areas, those techniques and those new methods, resources are really fantastic. They want to go out and grab it and bring it back. So because they're all very proud of their communities and their lands and what they have to offer, and it's up to us, I guess, in suburbia too, to start generating that bit of income for them as well. So our job is to resource Aboriginal communities, to build that capacity within there, to grow and harvest, etc. And we have a model which we actually go into community and help them first before me, Coolamon, Dillybag, whatever business I'm in, wants to get fat. So we help those communities first, because if our people aren't happy to get up every day and go out and harvest and bring it back for me, I'm not going to get it. So we've just got to turn the table and look at things a lot differently to Western societies looking.
But is that also something that you have to be mindful of, is that if the technology allows you to be able to harvest so quickly as well, that you're just across how much you are taking, so that you don't end up stripping that particular part that you're harvesting there?
Yeah, that's right. And our elders have given us permission to actually seed, crop seed and take it to other states and territories. So it's not just necessary to grow it in that particular land. So Kakadu plum, for example, or gubbinge comes from Broome, WA, Kimberley, but it's now being sent into Central Desert, and there's been a lot more stuff happening there. So it's about providing, if I get a large contract somewhere, you know, in one part of the world, I've got to meet that contract. Otherwise, I can't keep resourcing, so I've got to have product. So if we get a rainfall in WA and there's a drought over in somewhere else, I've still got to have that product. So we've got to be able to keep the crop going, I suppose, and have it in different places. So we've been given permission to do that. But like I say, the elders have only said you can harvest for 3 years, you stockpile your seed, so that then you can go out and grow your 1/2 tonne, or, you know, put in 100 plants or 5,000 plants or whatever it is you need.
So it's a bit of agribiz if you think about it, in the way that you now have to sort of, I suppose, farm in a time using the modern technology that's available and the way that farmers work these days.
Yeah, it is. Agribiz is really, I think, our future for Aboriginal Australia. I really think that we need to embrace it a lot more. That's why I get very passionate about bush foods. As I say, those new technologies and things that are coming out are just fantastic to be able to help us to produce more product and allow us to actually still follow traditional methods, because I think that's important. There's a lot of things people, you know, don't understand, is that there's when you take certain barks and things from a particular tree, you mulch that and you put that back into the soil around that plant, and that's what helps it to generate and to grow. So there's lots of techniques that our elders are giving us, which is really fantastic, and that traditional knowledge and harvesting techniques, etc., are still being passed on, which is really good. Yeah.
Dale, to me at the moment there seems to be this boom in internationally chefs kind of getting it into their heads, I want to work with Australian bush tucker.
Yes.
The Denmark restaurant Noma, which is going to have a 10-week run in Sydney at the start of next year, sold out in 4 minutes, and I think tickets were about $500 a ticket for that. But there's rumours that there's going to be possibly green ants on that menu. Now, I've been bitten by a green ant. It hurts. I've also eaten them by accident. They're interesting. But to me, it seems as though internationally, and you've been to the French Riviera to teach the French how to cook with bush foods, that internationally it's just, the time has come.
Yes.
And they really want to work with these ingredients.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're already seeing demand already, so I wonder what it's going to mean if Noma does decide to put green ants on the menu, and how you end up shipping those across to, you know, maybe Scandinavia or something.
I've been asked to source them, actually. So that's a, you know, big trip in itself. So, I've put the feelers out for him, and I've gone to different, you know, my different suppliers and different harvesters, because he wants a huge range of bush food. But sometimes I also think that they read something about a green ant and think, oh yeah, we all ate them, you know, and all this sort of stuff, because they taste awful. So unless you're going to chocolate coat it or something, you know. So yeah, it's interesting, the different types. Like just yesterday, I had a phone call for native turmeric, and so turmeric is just in flower. And it's a beautiful purple and yellow flower. So, you know, we need to, what I do is I say, well, yeah, I'll try and get it for you. But if I can't find 5-10 kilo, then I can't find it, you know. But what it allows us to do is then say, okay, we need to grow 500 plants. So with my little crop I've got in my back garden, I'll be going, oh yeah, 500, let's get them in the garden for next year, you know. And ginger plants, like they're just asking for all these different things, because lemon myrtle, aniseed myrtle, wattle seed, you know, finger limes, all those sort of ones. We've had them for the last 25, 30 years in you know, culinary space, even though we've had them for hundreds of thousands of years here. But they're starting to look for new things, which is great for agrobiz, for bush food, because then, as I say, we're able to identify what they are and then start to put the plants in the ground for next year's crop. Yeah.
So does that make it even though you have the sourcing issue. An exciting time though to be in this particular industry with the world knocking at your door asking.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah. Like when I went to France 15 years ago to introduce them to bush foods, they were very, very excited about bush tucker, and because they'd all, you know, been to Spain and they've had the Italian herbs and spices and all that. And I can't remember his name, but he was a very well-known chef. He was a bit like God over there at the time, and he had this tiny little fruit called a ryeberry. So we all know it's a lily pilly, yeah, Syzygium lamannii. And he looked at me, because I gave him this compote of just that particular, just cooked up. And he said, "Where's that cinnamon and clove flavour coming from? Did you put that in there?" And I said, no, it's from the fruit. And like he was just blown away from, you know, one tiny little fruit like that could give that power. And that's what I think is good for us as Aboriginal people, is the power of our food. Like I say, it is an effective weapon against heart disease and diabetes and all those sorts of things. If we all started foraging and grazing a lot more, walking through the garden. I love to go through my garden. Like at the moment I've got Davidson plums on. So I look out the back and I go, oh, there's a Davidson plum. The other day I found tiny little brown plum pine, Illawarra plum. So very hard to find a female tree. So there's lots of male trees, but when you find a female, you've got to go, oh, good-o. You know, and you try to source that one and make little cuttings and get more of them, because there's not many female Illawarra plum around anymore.
And I did hear that there is a prosciutto that is being developed as well.
Oh, I've had that for ages actually. It's been around for a while. Everyone, I think back in my day when I first started foods, it was just starting to, you know, people didn't really know about it. It was very unique-y kind of stuff. Whereas now, there actually is a trend now.
It's a bit kitschy.
Yeah. It's really getting out there. Chefs are wanting to do more with it. Young fella down here, what's his name? The chef next door.
In Goma.
In Goma, yes. He does beaut stuff.
Thanks, Josh.
Josh, yeah. Josh does great stuff. You know, he one day he made a wattle seed custard, put it onto a plate, onto like a little side plate, and then he got a chocolate and put it in a spray gun from Bunnings and went whoosh, and sprayed it all over the wattle seed, and it was just to die for, you know. So chefs are becoming a lot more enthusiastic, a lot more adventurous with bush food now, and they're starting to get a handle on how to process it, because I think that's the main thing. Is you guys all know what it is, but unless you know that you can dry it, grind it, you know, infuse it, make an oil out of it, etc., it's hard to know what to actually apply it to in your culinary.
And that's the next step, isn't it, of not only having the sourcing there, but being able to help people either grow it in their backyards or actually know how to use that in a cooking environment.
That's right. You'll have to get my cookbook.
Small plug. Well, we'll move on to you, Danny. And Danny, I mean, you have a similar, there he is, he's having a snack now. A similar experience in not only working with bush tucker, but walking country a lot of the time and showing groups around country.
Yeah.
When it comes to explaining to, I suppose, non-Indigenous participants about the way that you view country, how do you make them view that through your lens of explaining what you see when you look at country?
I'm trying to process all those words you just used.
Sorry. There's some walking.
So when I do some walking, yeah, that's it. Yeah, we go walk on the country. I show everybody what I'm eating, and I just say, have a taste. Try this out. Now they tell us that we're not allowed to feed, people, and that's probably because they're scared they're going to get poisoned or something like that. And when you're looking at food, there's a range of taste that come. So you got a taste of like real sour, you got a taste of bitterness, you got a taste of sweetness. And then there's these in-betweens for each one of those. as well. And this is when they say bush tucker is an acquired taste. You can get used to it. I'm kind of used to it, all of it. You know, someone, if I have to give them a Davison plum, I tell them it's like a salty plum. Yeah, so that's what they can relate that to, because it's very strong. When you put that in and mix it in with your dampers or any other type of food, it's really sweet. It's nice. Goes down well. And then of course I'm showing them how to respect the plant as well, and that the plant has more than just the leaves that are good for you. I just mentioned before about oils that they take out of the plants. They're separating plants and doing many tests with them in universities in particular. And some places have, from overseas, have taken our seeds and small plants back with them, growing them up, and now they're extracting the oil from those plants, using them as a medicine, and putting a patent on it as well, which is meant to be challenged, of course, especially if there's going to try and prevent us from doing what we do with it in that area. That is the gummy that I spoke of just then, in particular. And that was taken from a linguist who was with an old lady, did the language and everything up, and asked her about the medicine plants. The old lady showed her the gumby tree, and she took the seeds, without permission, of course. And she wasn't quite happy about that. And then the other thing, once she found out about all that stuff as well, was that the language became her copyright, the universities. And it was hard even for people like myself to go and say, oh, I hear my grandmother's voice. You know, so I had to, they tried to charge me like nearly $2,000 for a copy of that tape. So that's the way they carry on with that stuff. Yeah, the research that's going on with our bush tucker, with the oils, the flowers, the barks, the fruit and the seeds themselves, each one of them, and I really like the idea of combining, mixing 2, if not 3, of each part of that plant to aid and assist in any of that health benefits that go on there, like the kakadu plum. That's a super food in itself, or I reckon all of the superfood. They should have that up there, super in front of all our bush tucker food. But kakadu plum is up there as one of the highest antioxidants and vitamin C's. It's being used in as a preventative of certain cancers, as it is today. And there's the pepperberry, you know, mountain pepper tree, I think it's called, or Tasmanian pepperberry, yeah? And that too is being used even today as something that deals with rheumatoid arthritis in itself. Another university did a study on warrigal green, and it far outweighed the nutritional value of kale, which again is already a superfood. There's certain ways you've got to treat these things, rather than just go down there and chuck it in your mouth, you know. It might not taste as good as this leaf that I'm eating at the moment. Yeah? Like if you try and do what I'm doing with the lemon myrtle's a lot stronger. Yeah? You put that in your food, it can take over most curries, because it's strong. You smell that scent on it. Yeah, you get the oil out of that, rub it on your skin, it'll keep away mozzies. Those sandflies as well. Don't know about ticks, but I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah? Things like that.
Danny, you raised a good point about...
I raised a point.
You did? No. Because I have been following the patenting of particularly, if it's not the bush food, it's the particular enzyme that they find, or it's getting down to the nitty-gritty, from what I understand, and a lot of US companies coming in and wanting to do that. So when it comes to intellectual property, and I'll open this up to all of you, because in some ways, you know, intellectual property is all the way through this type of work and the sustainability of this kind of work. how do you go about protecting that in a culture where we readily share? We are a sharing culture. We are very happy to pass down information, to share information, to give information. So how do you protect that in the modern world? Danny?
Oh, you want to ask me?
Yeah, go on.
That's great. Thanks.
I can throw it to Dale if you want a moment.
I have no problem sharing. As much as I can, I want to educate everybody so that when the council go and plant all these silly trees down the roads and make these parks up and stuff like that, and then we should go over there, tear them out and chuck in some lemon myrtle and some fruit trees, some native trees, you know, like that. And there's many flowers you can eat as well that are very pretty that you can have there. And they seem to be planting 1 or 2 plants that are really good in either no good rain or in dry conditions, or either in really wet conditions. This is the type of plants they chuck out there. If you go along the beaches, they're employing people to go there and spray Warrigal Green. You know? I've got to get my feed still.
Yeah.
Like that.
There's 3 things as far as I understand. There's the biodiversity treaty, there's the agricultural, I forget what it's called, something or other, and then there's the Nagoya process, or new protocols that's just come out. It's been in existence 2010 when they had the conversation in Japan. And the biodiversity one deals with taking the plants between countries. So there's an agreement between countries that a particular plant, like I think the sweet potato, so the red sweet potato has lots of carotene and stuff in it, which is good for kids' bones and bodies, and I forget the other thing that it's good for. But they ended up taking that particular plant to, might have been Zimbabwe or Africa or somewhere, where they only had the white one, and that then allowed those healthier communities. So they eat sweet potato all the time, the red one. So the red one's good for us to eat, okay? So that's the one between countries. The second one with the agro thing is actually about the agricultural to do with, at a local level within your states and nationally, taking things across different states, etc. And they both sort of outrule each other. So that's why they brought in the Nagoya Treaty or protocols, which is quite a lengthy document. And Australia has taken it on since 2010, and it's only been since 2014 that it's actually got out there to other communities for people to actually start responding to now. And it's quite a powerful document, so look it up, read it, put in your 2 bobs worth to all these government bodies, because they're waiting for people to react to the Nagoya. And that's basically to say that it rules out the other 2. So when it's not looking at IP for Aboriginal communities, for example, in Australia, but this is across the world too, this is not just one. So for what that means is building, I believe what it is building relationships with those universities, with those different business peoples. So if you can build a relationship with the university that's going to do some sort of research on, like we're doing one with Gumby Gumby at the moment. And I know that the Gumby Gumby was hijacked by a German company, and they patented it to do with ethanol, methanol and water at 10 to 80 degrees. So that is actually something that belongs to them, and they sort of threaten you on their website. Have a look at gummygummy.com. They threaten you a bit about, if you're used making, this tonic, blah, 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 we'll have your guts regardless sort of thing. And it does. And like, I take no notice of it. I just make my own drink up and all that sort of stuff.
And call it something different?
Yeah. Well, you can actually get around it, because when you look at the patents, it's really not that strong. So if you look at the work we're doing with the St Lucia University is to do with gumby. So it's a whole new different technique of what we're going to be doing. So it's not necessarily the ethanol, methanol and water extractions. So you can kind of change things to work in your own thing, but what we have is a relationship between the UniQuest, which is the people who do the contracts and draw up the contract for commercialisation, etc., with our organisation, Red Centre Enterprises, which is we then help to represent the wider community, Aboriginal elders from different spaces who provide us with the leaf or the fruit or whatever it is that we're using. So it's about building good relationships with people, and also with the Nagoya protocols in place. If sometimes all you have to do is say Nagoya, and they shut up. So so we've engaged Terry Jenke, and Terry Jenke was the lawyer Aboriginal lawyer in Sydney who did the patent on Kakadu plum, on gubbinge. So if it wasn't for Terry, that particular gubbinge, or Kakadu plum, would be the property of Mary Kay. Because Mary Kay got the enzyme out, patented it, and did it underneath the biodiversity treaty, because America doesn't have a treaty. So there's two with the biodiversity, so between countries and countries, yeah? So the treaty, there's only two. It's America and the Holy something.
Holy Grail.
Yeah, well, it is. It's
Holy See.
the Holy See. That's it.
Really?
Yeah,
Is
they're
that
the
what
only
that
two in the world that don't have a treaty on the biodiversity stuff. So that's why they came over and they took that fruit and took it back and started to work with it and then made it into an enzyme. And then they went, because we're all going to be youthful and gorgeous, So that's the idea of it, just vanity.
And Terry Jenke is probably, I think she is one of the top intellectual property lawyers in Australia. Also was nominated just recently for Telstra Businesswoman of the Year, and originally from this way.
Yeah.
Totally
Great
came
woman.
up.
Yeah.
So Sonja, with you, notice any of your stuff pop up on eBay or Etsy, or and then realise that it actually isn't your stuff?
I'm all about sharing as well, so I guess it's more about our connection and our sense of belonging, and it'd be wonderful to see it grow and to see it that cultural retrieval. I see it more in those terms, but certainly as I go further into my study, I'll look at that aspect as well. Yes.
And I think I've got time for one more question before we open it up to the floor, and we are asking for questions tonight, so start thinking of your questions. But for each of you, I just wanted you to leave us with just one thought about sustainability from your point of view.
Dying with berries, and I was just thinking when you were talking, about the natural, beautiful experimenting, and as well as technique and knowledge and sharing. Dying.
Yeah. And mine would be to actually, go out there and get those seeds and propagate them and grow them in your own garden and eat them, and because they are medicine as well as takarei, Denny, So you've really got to grab those seeds, go for it, and keep the dream alive of sustainability of our beautiful plants.
Is there a website that we can go to that we can sort of see all the bush plants and
There's what is it, the native Facebook one? It's on Facebook, native plants and bush tucker and native plants or something. I'm often on there giving advice.
Can we get seeds from anywhere?
Yeah, there is. There's different seeds you can get. You can sometimes just Google up. Like I have a company. I've got a company in where is it? Down New South Wales somewhere, and I wanted strawberry gum, and they went out into the bush and they're propagating me up 80 strawberry gum trees. So you just go to your native fruit, native plant people, and just ask.
Danny, your
Well,
last thoughts?
Last thoughts, or famous last words. I would say educate people, share, yeah, ask questions, be inquisitive, to be the human that you are, and ask a lot of questions, and then once you do get the answers, have a look at how many different answers you can get with that one as well. Yeah.
I'll open it up to the floor now. We do have a mic, do we not? Ah, there we go. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and a mic will be coming towards you.
Coming to a store near you.
There's no question too big or too small.
So, Dale, you were saying that the elders had allowed you 3 years to gather resources, things like that. What happens after those 3 years, and what are you doing?
You give it a break, you let it regenerate on its natural thing, and then a couple of years later, because that time you've collected seed and you've gone and, I guess, propagated in commercial form, you know, might be rows, might be in a hothouse, something like that. Because to produce certain things, it's volume, you know, like 100 hothouses, for example, and you know, 150 of them might be growing warrigal greens and the other 50 might be doing native mint. So, yeah, and it's looking at different ways that can happen.
What happens to the community in that 3 years? Like, you know, for 3 years they're getting the benefits, like financial, the economy. What happens in the years you're not there?
Well, we've stockpiled.
Yeah.
So therefore they've gone out and they've sourced and they've already gathered 5 tonne of wattle seed. So we sell somewhere between 1 and 2 tonne a year at the minute.
Oh, wow.
So therefore, if we can get communities stockpiling, and basically what we try to do is actually buy that so that the community has an income, and so it keeps existing.
Exactly, yeah.
Plus you bring in other things. So there are short-term projects growing and long-term projects. Yeah.
It's lovely. It's really wonderful.
Was there a question down the front here?
God.
Hang on, mic coming. They're not my rules.
That's all right. I was just thinking about that crop rotation and how you might incorporate it into, say, city gardens.
Yep.
Because it always seems to be the city that promotes those ideas, the interest, the cafe culture itself,
Yes.
and that discussion
Yep.
would be an interesting way to present to people to grow that. So if they saw it as a bush food that became a staple that was in their environment, that would be a really lovely way to start to understand it.
Yes, yes.
And also maybe having that in your garden, having, say, the myrtle, the next garden having the, what was the other one?
Aniseed.
Danny, aniseed?
Yeah.
The aniseed. And then knowing what might be growing with it in, I guess, a permaculture way, like what would be supporting that, and what animals that might bring to your garden, or
Exactly.
bird and butterfly friendly. So the idea of the flora coming, as well as the insects, and that kind of generating that glamour of beauty, as well as nourishment, as well as a talking point.
Yeah. A lot of our plants, there's lots of gardens out there already. Back in 2006 when I went to Italy for slow food, I came back and I developed a program called Grow, Cook and Eat. And that was about growing the food, propagating it, putting it together. So I did lots of things with a lot of Aboriginal students, and they did hospitality and horticulture and art along the way. So there are a lot of gardens already out there. I think like I've got a friend who's got a lemon myrtle tree, and it's like double the size of the house because it's a rainforest tree.
Yep.
You know, so what we need to do is what Danny was saying, is educate people about these things. And yes, if you lop it, it'll go this way. You know, so it goes more like a hedge, and it keeps within the boundaries. Otherwise, they come down. Otherwise, the council will just lop it.
Yeah.
It's like the bunya tree, the Ocaribidwillii, because what they do there is in Brisbane Council, they go and denut the tree, whereas every year we're looking for a bunya nut, eh? So they denut the tree, whereas we need to start educating people. Well, just don't park underneath it
Yes.
at Christmas time. You know, don't stand underneath the onion tree, otherwise they'll knock you on the head. So yeah, it's about that education process, like Danny was saying.
May I ask another question on that, and then I'll pass it over? So if in 2006 you were working with Indigenous kids
Yep.
to teach them these skills, if they're in Queensland, would it be possible for me to engage or speak to one of them? I live in West End.
Yep.
We have lemon myrtles that I jumped 3 back fences for. But to put that into my house, to start getting that going into my front
Yep.
yard.
Yeah, there's a few of those students have all gone on to either do further horticultural programs or some. I remember a mother and a daughter we had, and they actually said at the end of the course that if it wasn't for this course, we would not be friends. We would not be sitting in this room together.
Yeah.
So the course actually brought them together and consolidated them, and they went home and they built a community garden in their own backyard, and everyone in that street, bit like what Costa does, you know, in the thing, and does that now.
Planting on the verge.
Yeah,
It's all about verge.
all about verge.
Would there be a way for you to enable us to have a way of contacting them through this talk?
Yeah, I would have to talk to them first because you know, they don't particularly want to be inundated. But you can also talk to all your nurseries as well, like Wichita Grub Bush Food Nursery, who go and do all that sort of stuff. The university at St Lucia, there's a bush tucker garden there from last year. All of the plants are all doing really, really well, and they're the plants that we use with the students that run the bush tucker course.
So they're all southeast Queensland grown.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but a lot of our plants go all over the place. You know, bush tomatoes still grow here in the top end of Queensland, but they're mainly through Uluru and into Alice Springs and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Thank you. I like that. I can just hear the news report now about a whole heap of the garden going missing at UQ. We've got your names. Question down the front here.
I'm just here, everybody can hear. Just follow on from that same question, it's like balcony food, in terms of the social housing around the place, it's all going up, and they don't have yards, and they don't have room for community gardens. So what can they grow, or what can I grow?
Yeah. I would, we did a course on that actually. So polyboxes are great.
Yeah.
But things like your low stuff, like Warrigal greens that Danny mentioned, they're great because they're just low stuff, eh?
Yeah, you get them, what do you call that one? The little paper bag one? Gooseberries.
Oh yes.
Yeah, you get gooseberry, they're good too.
Now, I'm going to forget all this now that you've told me.
Yeah, yeah.
Where do I find that information?
Look, if you go on Wichita Grub Bush Food Nursery,
Yep.
WITJUTI, Wichita, they're at Kenilworth or Cottondale.
Yep.
They have a wonderful range.
Okay.
And, you know, native mints, your parsleys, your kangaroo, what was it? Emu's foot grass. There's a whole range of small crops that you can actually put in the garden. Lemon myrtle goes great in a pot.
Yeah.
Aniseed in a pot.
Yeah, you grow until it gets too big and then go plant it in your front yard.
Yeah.
Or somebody's front yard, so they can grab it as they're walking down the footpath.
And I guess it's like, how do we get that to be used from the veranda to
Yes.
the
Yeah, buy my cookbook.
yeah.
Yeah, well, things like your Warrigal greens, you have to boil them for 3 minutes, that's the law. And then you put them in your spinach pie, put them in muffins.
Salads as
You
well.
know how to use it, but
Yeah.
would we take it to a restaurant? Would they know what to do with it?
Some restaurants do. See,
I'm
with
in
the
the valley,
Warrigal,
so yeah.
yeah, with the Warrigal, there's that education thing again about, you know, you need to cook it for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And the only reason, like, if it's been left in the sun, like on the beach, it's a little bit more toxic than something that's under shade. So there's lots of different things but if you just cook it for 3 minutes, it's all good and dandy. Yeah.
And again, sorry if I could ask a second
Oh,
question.
go for it.
I do
Yeah,
apologise.
completely.
Again, it's just in terms of property rights and in terms of the native foods and those sort of things. Does that get back to the Indigenous population, or are we making money for the university, for the lawyers, for those sort of things? my concern is that there are opportunities out there for Indigenous people,
Yep.
but people like me come and steal the ideas and make money out of it, and
Yep.
like remote communities miss out.
Yeah.
I love your ideas in terms of agribusiness in remote communities,
Yep.
and like I like the whole idea of you know, solar energy, wind
Yeah.
farms, and those
Yeah.
sort of things out there as well.
Yeah.
And again, the opportunities are there, but the wrong people are making the money.
Yeah, but what happens is that our people in those remote areas, they really just want to learn how, they just want to teach their skills to their young children, and to keep that alive, basically, and keep it sustainable for the future. So they don't want to value add a product.
Yeah.
They want people like me to value add the product, because that's where I come into it.
Yeah.
So we try to keep the line
Yeah.
or the lineage of our thing through Aboriginal businesses, because if it continues through Aboriginal businesses, it's got to go back. So it's a full circle. That's how we see it. Like, for example, with Wichita Bush Food Nursery, we're negotiating with them at the moment that they grow the plant. So it might be a couple of hundred, might be a couple of thousand, whatever it is. There's a little sticker that goes on there that says that you know, let's say 50 cents goes back to Aboriginal communities. So it goes into a foundation pot. From that foundation, there's a whole heap of criteria there where remote area communities could say, oh, I want to start a childcare centre on my community. All right, put in your little expression of interest and we'll tick and flick the boxes. So yeah, that sort of thing. That's how we see it happening, is giving back to community. Yeah.
As long as we get back, that's all the point.
Yeah, and you know, there's more and more people like yourself who want to see that happen, and we believe by us sticking together and having this little, I guess, brand, that we can do it. Yeah.
And I really do think the opportunity is there to break down some of the racism and stuff.
Exactly.
In terms of, and I think the opportunity's there. I really do.
Yeah.
So I'm shutting up. I'm getting on my favourite topic.
My voice is not as high as it is. Thank you. Gathering bush tucker is tough work, and encouraging people in remote areas to
We're
undertake.
talking to the mic there.
Oh, sorry. I just want to using it. Thank you. Gathering is hard work, and to encourage it. But I was thinking, what's in abundance? And I thought of things like locusts, and I thought of heaven help us, cicadas. And I thought they're a great source of protein. And they must have been used in times past.
Yeah. Yeah.
There must be a knowledge out there about how to do that. And that
I
would
still eat
be...
them.
So,
I'll eat them. They come on, get in my way. I get them big moth too.
and the big moths, and the moths, yeah. So I was thinking those sort of things are an added incentive to gather. And is there thinking about what we can do?
I guess it comes back to that supply though and demand. Like, who wants it? Do you want a boggle mop? You know what I mean? Like, we've got to work out. Like, witchetty grubs are pretty popular,
Sure.
but they're
We
a
need to
rare
go to
thing to
Asian
go
countries.
and get.
Asian countries.
Yeah.
No, seriously, it is
Yes.
something that I know that the UN has been looking at in terms of those countries, particularly in Asia, where they don't have a lot of land available for farming, how they're going to feed the populations that they have, and the fact that the countries that we have that do eat insects, where you can pick them off on the street, chuck a bit of salt on them, have a bit of a feed, they're the places that they're targeting and trying to get some kind of, I don't even know what it's called as a farming thing. Is it like a bug farm situation where they're trying to encourage locals to farm bugs to sell, to be able to feed
grasshoppers.
things like that, that they know that they're going to have a food shortage in the next, 10 to 20 years, and looking at that. So I reckon you're onto something.
Yes.
Just start sort of collecting the cicadas, and we'll start exporting them across.
Well,
Yeah.
as I have heard that in the UN, and of course they say it's a great source of protein, those, and maybe, you know, we just can't, for sustainability, we're going to have to look at alternative sources.
Yes.
But I think it's like people like Dale, you can turn it into a gourmet dish.
Yeah, I throw
You know?
chocolate on it.
Doesn't appeal yet.
Chocolate, just a cicada.
If you
I cook everything, but I don't eat
Raw.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly anything I grab that's like the seeds and the what do you call them, the leaves like warrigal green and things like that. I want to activate as much as I can. Yeah. So you want to leave it in water overnight, and then you want to grind it down, and then give it a slight roasting. Yeah. Or you can give it a roasting straight up, the way it is, and then it's great. Chuck it over your toast, you know, sprinkle it over your food. You got a little bug or a grub. Sprinkle, cook that, get that in the little griller. Yeah, put it, turn it around on the fire a couple of times. Yeah, and then he's right to go. You just sprinkle some of the nuts over the top of that. The wattle seed is really nice once it's roasted. And sprinkle that over it, and hey, down the hatch, goes good.
wattle seed with coffee
Yeah.
Yeah, goes good.
goes perfectly.
It's that education thing again, you know. It might not become a worldwide thing in my time or yours, but it might be our kids' generation that are going to go for it, you know. A lot of people have tried, you know, when you go to Asia and you try the little bugs and all that, you know, the grasshoppers are all skewered up and that sort of thing. Like I eat prawn heads, I love prawn head, I love fish eyes. So it's a mental thing, yeah. It's a mental thing, you've got to get it ready, don't you?
Get ready.
I love fish eyes.
I used to call
I
them-
love frogs' legs.
Yeah,
I
right.
like snails.
It's
are good.
snails, I love
are
snails.
Snails
Oh, can't get enough of snails.
Well, look, what do they eat up in the Torres Strait? They've got the sea cucumber. Like, that's the ugliest looking thing I've ever seen in my life. But they love it, you know? And take it overseas, they love it even more.
It could be a solution for things like, say if there's an up and coming plague of grasshoppers, which
Yeah.
is on the cards, I believe.
Yeah.
There's been a lot around out
Yes.
west.
Yeah.
It'd be a great way just to like harvest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Harvest in season.
Yeah.
Only happens once every 5 years.
Snap freeze.
Let's think outside.
Yeah.
Making salt and vinegar and I'll be in.
Yeah.
Can I ask Sonja a question?
Go for it.
Sonja, I was just thinking, we're doing a lot of collecting of things, looking at the environment and collecting product off the land and recycling in that way. Do you sort of see an opportunity for us to be looking, not only collecting around us, but not putting things in the bin in the first place?
Absolutely, I think that's the point I meant to make as well, the importance of educating and plastic-free zones, and I don't know how we actually do what we're doing is a start, but long-term sustainability-wise, and just while we're at it, if I can give a little plug in terms of celebrating the rebirth of our weaving, we've got a beautiful Strands Coming Together exhibition coming up with Southeast Queensland Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander fibre artists and textilers in mid next year, so it'd be great to have you come along, and that'll be curated in Redlands Art Gallery by a young Quandamika woman, Freya Carmichael.
Lovely. Who is present tonight?
Young sister girl there, another sister girl there.
No,
Lots of beautiful exhibitionists.
Yeah, you can make yourself shoes, you can make clothes, hats, everything out of like what they got here, these little weaving stuff. Used to use them to, we just get the bark, even off the paper bark tree, fold that, and then you just tie a little knot in the top part, slip some bark, roll that up, through underneath that, tie it up again, then you got like a little doll already started. You know? You can do some weaving, you make a little bag, and you put clothes on that, hats. They're just little ways to work with, especially for people to start getting focused. rather than allowing them to be scatterbrained, stuff like that.
So there is that spiritual aspect. We've been talking about the three of you presenting what you individually do, but really it draws all together in that spiritual side of weaving is slowing down, finding your food is nourishing your body, and all of that is healing your mind.
Oh yeah. You see, like I go past the way these contractors are just knocking down trees and clearing land and that. You go past there and acknowledge those trees that have fallen like that, and you know, can apologise, but it's like an honouring, so to speak, and respecting their lives for their time they provided us the shade, cleaned our air, and that, and stood tall, reminded us of life itself. And then you can go to another tree somewhere else and pull up these big old trees. There, you could stand there and talk to this tree, and that tree sometimes you'll hear it. He'll say thank you for acknowledging the fallen. They communicate to each other, no matter how far away, because they're all connected to the same earth, just like we are. There.
I think we've got time for one more question. Is that right, Donna? Yeah. Oh, down the front here. Yeah, great.
I'll just go back to Sonja. Can you just tell us a little bit more about your washed up program?
Sure. It's it's in its early stages, so we've just really piloted it for the Quandamooka Festival. We had schools come on board, children between the ages, I think, of 10 and 14, you know, so it was in a collaborative project between State Library and Tangalooma Eco Marine Warriors and the schools. So the students each had a role in their school, you know, and working within their local community, you know, on different projects. And I was actually the artist on the project. So Tangalooma worked with the students and State Library, and then we'd come together during the festival for a number of workshops where I worked with them on the Washed Up. Was actually sponsored by Reverse Garbage, and Reverse Garbage were wonderful. They supplied all the materials, and we also had a lot of stuff that had washed up on country, really, really rotten, around dead turtles even, you know, on the beach. In an hour one day we collected this huge bag on Main Beach, on Back Beach there. And so stuff that was washed up on country was all about cleaning first. The children would come together on a Sunday morning and go for a gathering on the beach with and then bring all their gear back to the circle, and we'd weave together. It was really lovely. We had it with their parents involved, so it was a very multicultural, experience with all different schools across Brisbane and Gold Coast, Islamic School of Brisbane, schools from girls' schools, young, all over. Yeah, it was great, and they all come over to Australia. I think I had nearly 60 people in the weaving circle in Australia, and they made some incredible little pieces, you know. I worked with the crabbers out at Amity, gave me his bait bags from the trawler, so that was their canvas, and we worked on making little turtles. They wove their own turtles, and they did an amazing job, didn't they? And they, you know, incorporated rubbish that they'd collected, and then we had this beautiful installation with all their work together, and a huge big turtle full of rubbish that we'd gathered, that we made that was the sort of the core of it, you know, of the and we floated that in the wading pool at Wynnum, and then we had another made a whale tail for the closing congeal ceremony at Quandamooka Festival. So it was a beautiful 3-month project that lots of schools came on board with, and I'm not sure what the life of it is from here, but it was, great to be part of.
Okay. And do you do anything with the ghost nets?
Well, I guess it's certainly when we go to Cairns Indigenous Art Fair, love linking with Arab and Dami Island women, and sit under that tree and weave, you know. They make some amazing sculptures, and they're in Singapore exhibiting at the moment. Beautiful work. They went fishing, and you should have seen the fish they made. Yeah, wow. Yeah.
Didn't their octopus just get bought by one of the big galleries in Australia? So there was this octopus full size, not more than full size actually, mega, like something you would expect in a nuclear disaster or something that would eat you off the beach. But it was all made out of ghost nets and was actually been acquired, which is lovely. But they've done some big installation pieces.
Yeah, last year.
Because they see quite a bit of it in the Torres Strait.
Yes.
What swishes around the sides of houses, I think, and they gather and make beautiful, like last year at Cairns Indigenous Art Fair, they had this massive boat they'd made. I think the National Museum acquired it, and Gallery acquired it, and they've made some incredible pieces, yeah.
And what about your dyeing? When you're talking about dyeing?
I'd love to, to work with colour, I guess, and natural fibres more. Like I'm so involved with what comes out of the sea, but that's what part of my project with UQ is working on. Our old learning our old technique, but also the dyes, this beautiful berries, and I went up to the Northern Territory last year to Arnhem Land with a field study, and wow, the women up there, they go into the jungle and look out for that baru, crocodile. They're so rough, those brutal, those pandanus. By the time they finish that process and then start digging for all the dyes, with that stick, and sometimes there's nothing at the end of it. So move to the next tree, and then we'll get back to the beautiful camp. Oh, it was amazing, they mix the different leaves and roots and ash to get all different colours,
So they didn't use any chemicals?
No, it was over the open fire, and then all the stripping, and by the time we weaved, that was the easy part. I had them to show you, and I've left them at home because I wanted to bring some of my natural. Yeah, it's beautiful, but like I haven't really. I've just been using like natural spices, like turmeric gives a beautiful colour, and.
I'll give you some natural native turmeric because it's gorgeous. It stains your fingers. Chronic.
Is it yellow?
Yeah, or orange.
Orange, wow. On country there's some beautiful berries growing, and things right there at 1 mile, and I'm not sure how to do it, but I'd like to,
I used Danella flowers once, the little purple.
Oh yeah.
And I just ground them up, just did my own gammon
Right.
thing. And then I threw I had this little vest, and I threw the vest in, and it turned it purple.
Wow.
Yeah, it was lovely.
So we could try it with some of the beautiful organza.
I tried it once with a few things, but lichen as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What colour does that bring?
I really like Dale's t-shirt.
Oh, beautiful.
Beautiful crimson,
Well, I was reading the desert women with some of their, the desert women experimenting with acrylics and wool and things, and using the toilet blue to get the colour. Apparently that gives a beautiful indigo colour.
Well, on that note, can you please help me in thanking Sonja, Dale and Danny for their time this evening?